Hey, what's up guys, it's your boy Patience. So I decided to come at you guys with a little new one. So in this one, I'm going over Mass Effect Legendary. Reason being is because obviously we're familiar with, well, I'm a Star Citizen player. I guess you could say tester, because I would like to see that game progress in the future and become something greater. And so my implementation and pitching in and sending bug reports, I believe, is a way of helping to achieve that. Along the way, what I want to do is I kind of want to compare the two, as it were. So like textures, I want to see how far off Mass Effect was from its goals and achievements, because obviously it was a very expensive game when it was remade. Not necessarily remade, but well, they remastered it, and it went selling for about, I think it was about £80, and you was able to buy all three in the trilogy, which is awesome. Mass Effect 1, Mass Effect 2, Mass Effect 3, and then obviously Star Citizen you was able to buy for about £50, but in fact Star Citizen came with Squadron 42, and also there was a pledge you had a ship that comes with it. I chose to go with the Aurora in my time, because the Aurora was one of my favorite ships at that time. Ironically, it still is, and so that's why I chose to go with it. Obviously, I felt like the bargain price was pretty darn awesome, because I'm not sure if it's a bargain, but obviously it came because we buy so much components in it. We buy memory sticks, we buy power supplies, motherboards, storage drives, CPUs, GPUs, and any other kind of peripherals in and about components that we might build within our components, our systems. And so technically, ultimately, we are buying more than just a game. You're buying like flight sticks, which comes on the peripherals, etc, etc, etc. So our commitment to not necessarily a game, but I prefer to call it a simulator, is far from, unnoticed. I like to believe. Whereas something like this, especially that was a title coming from a previous title, just remastered, I like to look at such things and say, like, what do these developers think when they're creating, when they're developing a project in order to push out there for the mass public. Now, I look at Mass Effect Legendary, and I say, yeah, the textures were most certainly upgraded to a fine degree. Mass Effect 1, I think you can buy for about £5. When it first came out, it was about £50, of course. I believe the story is exceptional for Mass Effect 1 all the way up to Mass Effect 3. They weren't satisfied with how the game played. Fortunately, they kept true to the Mass Effect 1 play style, because that's what made it my favorite game. Not only that, but what I did love was the guns. You didn't need to reload, guys. This is a future, and in this future, plasma guns kind of like recharge and they overheat. You don't really need to reload them, as it were. I mean, currently in the modern age that we're living in right now, we're moving towards efficient, renewable energy. We also have battery-free devices, which is a sign of ingenuity. We're moving towards a future where energy is consistent, never-ending, which I think is a good idea, my darn self, and I'll say mostly a consumer. taking that into consideration, translating that over into Star Citizen 900 years in the future, we're still using ammo. Some people would say it's amazing. I would disagree. I would prefer to have certain guns that reload and certain guns that don't. But I guess that goes to player preference or developer preference. I'm not sure. But what I do want to do is I want to keep true to the playthrough as well, guys. How I like to play when considering you guys is when I hover over a choice and I choose another choice, I'm showing you like this is an answer that I may or may not choose, but I'm gonna go with this one in regards to what the NPC might be saying to me. But in this playthrough, I might kind of like evade from that a little bit, and just kind of like narrate a little bit over the gameplay. So here, obviously, Mass Effect's about aliens, and I'm shooting at aliens. I'm not necessarily too fond of aliens my darn self. I grew up watching TV shows like the X-Files, and aliens in the X-Files were they were kind of like suspicious little beings, strange creatures. You know, they always kind of like hurt humans as well. Some of them would go for vulnerable humans, which kind of led you to kind of think about things. And it's ironic that you got Gillian Anderson in Star Citizen, because obviously she stems back from the X-Files, guys, which was one of our favorite TV shows in the very early, I believe that was a show of the very early 90s, yeah. So anywho, it kind of leads one to assume that because it is quite an intellectual TV show, it's quite sophisticated, I guess you could say, obviously. But when I was younger, I always thought of it as, oh wow, they're chasing aliens and the government are keeping troops away from the mass public, and they're finding aliens from outer space that kind of intrude in Earth, and etc, etc. You know how the story goes. But in this instance, as I got older, I kind of began looking at it from a different view. I was like, oh wait a minute, as you begin to read the dialogue and you begin to understand the characters a bit more, and you begin to hear how they kind of converse with each other, it's kind of like, well, does this mean that what they're saying is, how could we be so stupid as to believe in aliens when what we're trying to say is people are like aliens because their behavior is too alien to be considered as normal, which was a perspective that I made a little bit more sense. And once I kind of looked at it that way, I was like, kind of spoiled the TV show a little bit, because I was like, I do like the phenomena of space, the strangeness, the anomalies, you know, I kind of like that stuff, not knowing what tomorrow holds, as it were. So taking that into consideration, I do love shooting at aliens, and I do hold something like a personal grudge against aliens. Some people might step out of the way and say, but ain't angels and technically God aliens? Yes, they are, but in that regard I wouldn't hold anything negative against them. Some people might say, yeah, but they left us to struggle and to suffer on planet Earth. I personally believe that if that happened, there must have been a reason behind that, a reason unknown. But if I'm breathing oxygen free of charge, I like to believe that he was kind enough to allow whatever's going on to happen with just that as you know, like a gaping kind of chance that we may linger or cling to the fact that he must love us, because we're still able to breathe oxygen, we're still able to drink water, we can still fall in love, we know what love is, we can communicate with him, etc, etc, etc. So that's why I won't necessarily deem them as like hostile aliens. If there are spiritual beings, I would believe them to be just like us, loving individuals that are caring and are more than us because they created us, and I believe they love us, guys. So in that regard, those kind of aliens, I don't hate those kind of aliens. I hate the kind of aliens that you find in this, the ones that were just shooting at. And what this story is actually based on, this is Zeus Hope. Zeus Hope is based on a bunch of scientists that gather alien species and begin experimenting on them. But the story begins to unfold the more we go through. It would seem as if they're experimenting on more than just aliens, and that's when I begin to feel, as you can see, the water droplets here, guys, the same as in Star Citizen. So I think the water is something that can be upgraded. That's why I'm focusing on it here. It can be we can create better water nowadays. I can create better water textures than this, guys. So anyway, you get these people, they want to test on so to me that's like that's alien, taking subjects, vulnerable subjects, and testing on them with or without their consent because they're not at the same intellect as you, because you feel like you're more than them. If they're not smart enough to know what's good for them and what's not, then you take full charge and advantage of the situation. That kind of criteria is a bit too vague for someone to be considered human from my perspective. I think that's a bit too outlandish, too far outlandish. So to me, a person like that would be alien. You're practically stripping others of their lives in order for you to create a better one, at least from your own standpoint. To me, that's alien, because we're not usually like that. We usually care for our friends, our families, our friends' friends, and our friends' families. So that's why I do like this. Obviously, this game is coming from. This is a kind of sci-fi, science fictional version of Rainbow Six. Again, taking Rainbow Six into consideration, yes. Taking Rainbow Six into consideration, what I love about this title, as like Rainbow Six, is your teammates, including yourself. You can take cover, guys. In real life, if you got one guy, and there's 20 of you, there's one guy opposing the 20, and he takes out a submachine gun or some sort of a gun, even if it's a pistol, and he starts firing it your way. If there's a wall in front of you, shielding you from the person that's gunning at you, you're gonna take cover. You're not necessarily gonna poke your head around the wall. You're gonna place your back on the wall, and you're gonna shield yourself the best you can to ensure that no bullets hit you. Once he stops firing, then you're likely to stick your head first around the wall, guys. Now, cover mechanics is not a bad thing. It's something good to put into any title. As you can see here, the AI in this title is a bit more aggressive than Star Citizen. What do I mean? They're all firing away at us, and when we begin to put on the pressure, they begin to back away. This is not AI, guys. This is a script. Okay, the script is once we come into a certain region, this triggers, and they execute. That trigger is executed, which means the NPCs now become active and they start doing their dues. Their goal is to kill us. Obviously, there must be a script that says once the AI's energy reaches this level, they will go to a more defensive. They will take on a more defensive situation. They'll defend themselves a bit more. They'll back away. They'll take cover. Otherwise, they just come rolling into you. If they're big, then taking cover is not necessarily priority. So these are, not only is this a great title of mine that I've loved playing ever since my childhood, but it's also a title that I can kind of take because I know it inside and out, and I can kind of use it as like a reference as to something similar to like Star Citizen or any other title that may be coming out, that has come out, or is being planned in development. because I can say, well, there's shortcuts that developers are likely to take, and in many cases there's nothing wrong with that, but in certain cases there are. If it's like a PC game, a game that's come out for the PC, yes, there is something wrong with that, because players go out to buy the best of components to experience the best of qualities experiences. So it's only right that you make titles that compensate or complement that. Like, for instance, you don't go out and buy yourself an RTX drive and plug it into your system to play a title that does not have or does not support RTX. Now you might say, what is RTX? Most people's understanding of RTX is reflections. It covers its strong point is reflections. So if you're making a title and you can't see the reflection of your character or most things in that world, then it's not an RTX title, is it? And then we've also got ray tracing. Most of these titles don't have ray tracing. I don't believe this one was made with ray tracing, so they most probably say that it does have ray tracing, but I'm pretty sure it does not. But it most certainly does have dynamic lighting and all that nonsense. So taking these things into consideration, there's I will say there's a compatibility issue between games and components, developers and content. They're not necessarily trying to make content. Not all. This one kind of gets away with it because this was not necessarily made for the PC, but there is a PC version. Most games obviously are made on PCs, so technically there's no excuse there. So there are certain things here, like I can see certainly textures, they do look not as good as Star Citizen, but I can see where there's textures in Star Citizen where I feel like some textures are maybe not textures. They might be like little flat pictures, 2D pictures with a little bump map on it that's not convincing enough. Like, this game was sold for £50 for Christ's sakes, and you can see the DL around the character's neck as it meets with his armor. There's a few flat points, and the hair textures, eyebrows, even the sharpness of the hair and the beard, a lot of stuff like that, like the ears, the way the skin looks, the shadows. They took it, they remastered it, but it's not really a remaster, as it were. It was just like a little uplift. If you were like me, once upon a time I used a mod. I can't remember if it was just a reshade mod or whatever, but it really did enhance the game. There was also a better textures mod, and it weren't far off from this. Obviously this one you got to pay an arm and a leg, and the previous one, the modded one I was telling you about, was free. And if I was to turn on the modded version, it enhances the game to look a lot like the legendary version. And on my previous gaming channel, which was Patience Gamer, I'm now Dark Patience Gamer. On my previous channel, what was it? I was able to create a few, I won't necessarily say mods, but they technically were mods. I created new textures, and so I was able to change features of some of my characters. I could probably do it here in Legendary as well, which is something that I might contemplate in doing. Taking that into consideration, character customization in Star Citizen is very, 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 very poor, guys. For starters, height. I'm about 6'2". I have friends that are about I think it was 5'1" or was it 5'2", and majority of them are around that height range, 5'3", 5'4". I think 5'5" is about the tallest. And then obviously my family members are about my height, maybe a little bit smaller here or there. About 5'9" will probably be, maybe 5'8" would be the shortest we've got, at least within my household, immediate family. Majority of my family is about my height, maybe a little bit taller. And obviously we come in different shapes. Some of us are a bit tubby, some of us are muscly, some of us are skinny, etc, etc, etc. And then you got obviously skin tone, and so that's for starters. So you got weight, you got height, and you got obviously you got personalities as well, guys, and we all walk differently, we talk differently, and etc, etc, etc. There's easier ways of reaching a target, I guess you could say ID stamp, when customizing a character. But the current model where you're taking like all these people and you're trying to, you know, fix the genes between each character is a bit too strenuous. Also here I believe they ruined the control of the Mako, because in the original series Mass Effect 1 I could control it perfectly, but in this one it controls a bit very strange. So it was ruined, it was broken, but this game was sold for premium prices. Anywho, so the character customization scheme is dreadful in Star Citizen as it stands, and I'm surprised that they even thought about putting that into a patch to test, because it was obviously crap to start with. And but I think a lot of people are actually digging it. I personally hate it with a passion. The best way would be obviously, if you got a face, you pick a face shape, even if you sculpt the face shape, and then you put your eyebrows, similar to Mass Effect. Mass Effect did a slight better job in this regard. You put your eyebrows height, its width, its depth. You know, you focus on one character. You don't want to mix and mesh. We get the whole idea of the mixing and meshing crap, but we don't need to go through that nonsense. You have many gaming titles that's been through all that nonsense already, and those titles are no longer fully recognized. There is no need to go through that junk, guys. What we are doing is building from the past into the future. You would have thought the goal and the idea was. Now this game did a very, very good job, and when I look at Star Citizen, it takes on a lot of characteristics from Mass Effect. So a lot of people are saying, oh, I don't like Mass Effect, Mass Effect was a crap game. I said, Star Citizen, if you ask me, guys, is Mass Effect. It comes with the same kind of theme, the same genetic makeup. The only difference is it's modern. Mass Effect in its golden age, guys, which it was released somewhere around 2006, 2007, and that's when I bought it. Mass Effect was one of the best gaming titles, simply because the textures in that time, and the story, etc. That's why I'm playing it now, guys, and that's why I can use this gaming title to, you know, in contrast to Star Citizen. This bit is funny. This is the bit that I was trying to talk about before when I said aliens. This chick here, she makes me laugh because she has no weapons or anything, but she's taking charge in this situation, which tells me that she knows more about the situation than she's obviously letting on, which was obvious from the get-go. But it would also, considering the type of chick that she seems to be a very nice person, but all of a sudden she shows a very different side to herself. I believe that she can weaponize whatever this Thorian species may be, to use it under her control, maybe her will. That's what I personally believe. So I believe there was more to this story than the BioWare team actually put on at that time. So these guys to me would be aliens, because now everything is righteous and everything is good and they're the victim. But prior to this, they were seemingly doing tests on innocent people using alien DNA. And that's why it would seem as if they're all acting slightly strange and crazy. There's a lot of information that they seemingly know that we don't know, and there's nothing that we know because they're holding so much secrets. So these guys to me would be aliens, okay? And there's a lot of people out there like that in the real world, guys. People that, you know, run tests on other people that they believe they're better than, or they believe they have more authority than. Some people would go as far as to say Microsoft is like that. I don't believe Microsoft is like that. Microsoft obviously run tests on our devices. Some people say without our know-hows, but I would say it is kind of within our know-hows, but there's a section to their I guess you could say experiments, if you would call it experiments, that they just don't let us in on. Maybe if we was to look into their scripts a little deeper, we will see that they have explained themselves wholesomely, but just not in a way that could be easily understood by people that don't understand them as well as maybe they would like it to, because they told us. Whereas like these guys, these scientists, obviously it's pretty clear to see that they were running experiments, and the experiments got maybe a little bit out of hand, and so they decided to rationally take things back into their own hands and continue to escalate what they were doing prior. As a result, it ended up affecting more than just their aimed audience, as it were. If you ask me, I believe that's inhumane. So I would have liked if in this Shepard would have been able to judge. We had the power to judge these guys working with Zeus Hope, because all of a sudden they're all blaming Zeus Hope, but they're at the same time calling this their home. They're all very kind of loyal. So I don't believe that there is any accident here. I believe everything's going exactly accordingly. Just the Geffers kind of put a little winch in their little plans. But obviously they don't want to go anywhere. So this seems like a mission success in their part. But for us, we're seeing a lot of affected individuals that are not supposed to be affected by any of this junk. So obviously Shepard is a guy that fights for humanity. That's what I chose, the career path I chose for my Shepard. And we're fighting against aliens. We're not working with aliens. Obviously we know of Cerberus. Does Zeus Hope work with Cerberus? That much I'm not too fully aware of. I'm not sure. Now in Star Citizen, I believe I think it's the ASD. They're supposedly coming across as like the Cerberus group, because their characteristics seem to be exactly the same. They seem to be experimenting on humans, which, if you ask me, perfect. Obviously I do feel a strong nostalgic kind of correlation between, or nostalgia between, Mass Effect and Star Citizen. It feels a little too close to home in certain ways, so I can't wait to see what we've got in store with Squadron 42. I'm hoping my darn self that Squadron 42 is not 30 minutes long. I'm hoping that this long wait for Squadron 42 is actually gonna pay off, because I heard when I first saw the Squadron 42 it's gonna be like a 3-disc scenario, 3 discs, which is neat. considering the fact that you have a disk drive. But taking that into consideration, I would like, this is what I would expect from Squadron 42. My darn self, obviously you're gonna get the graphics, fidelity, all this nonsense. What I want is about 500 hours per disc minimum. I would really like well over 1,000 hours, about 20,000 hours is what I would really expect from each disc. Adding that all up together, that's 2, 4, 60. That's how much did I say? 200 hours? 2,000, 20,000. So that's 600,000 hours. Okay. To obviously you know, have fun with and in the verse, because I'm getting sick and tired. We've done the 30 hours, we've done the 30 minutes. Yeah, this is all when we had the you know, like your 1080, 1060 GTXs. We played, like I've mentioned, the Zelda games, the Turok games. We played, you know, all these games with magnificent stories. Those two were some of the games that I played in my past that had some of the most memorable stories. That'd be Zelda Ocarina of Time and Turok. I think it was Turok 64 because it was different in that time, of its time. Whether or not anyone played it brand new or not is irrelevant. The fact of the matter is that game was, I think that game came out somewhere early 2000s, maybe kind of like mid to late 90s, and you know, it was different, and the play style was amazing. So we played that. No game is really popping in my head. You know, I mean, Tomb Raider was another good one when it came to story. I'm talking the early day Tomb Raiders, PS1 stuff, and etc, etc, etc. There were some games that had really good stories back in those days. Perfect Dark was actually another good one. Perfect Dark 64. I didn't play anything earlier than that, if there was any earlier than that. So taking those games into consideration, they're good stories. Zelda was probably the longest game. Zelda Ocarina of Time, and then obviously you had Zelda Wind Waker. But the Zelda games, the reason why I only mentioned Zelda Ocarina of Time is because it was one, if you ask me, with the best story. I didn't play any of the Game Boy ones or the SNES ones, so I'm pretty sure their story would have been relatively neat. But the one on the 64, it didn't just have a good story, but it also looked darn good as well, guys. And he was able to travel through time. You know, it was amazing. And you obviously experienced Zelda from a different perspective, and not only that, but it was not a flop in the least. So much so that every other Zelda game since then replicates Ocarina of Time right down to the blooming T. So you know, I always feel I can get my hands back onto Ocarina of Time, no matter what time or event I'm in within the real world. Developers even find it hard themselves to step away from Ocarina of Time. So taking that into consideration, this is something, this is why, well, what's my point again? Yeah, that's it. We've played a lot of these games where, you know, it's like 30 hours, 40 hours, 50 hours, and we've had a lot of fun doing that. I like to consider Star Citizen as like a retirement title, the title that kind of accumulates everything that gamers have done over the years and says, well, you guys have learned how to play hardcore. You guys are like, you know, the what do you call them? Would it be the millennials? You know, so Star Citizen is the title for the millennials, I believe it will be. And so you know, because after you get your hands on the title as such, you ain't necessarily going to want to play anything else, if that makes sense. Considering you see it as a playing title, because I personally see it as like a simulator. You go into space, you're experiencing space in damn near the realist experience, realest way possible. Obviously it could be a little more real, a little more because obviously it's very sci-fi, and it's got a little essence to what's that thing called, Star Trek, which means it's very, very, very sci-fi. So Star Trek was actually not overly sci-fi, it's actually pretty darn amazing, but taking the philosophy of the fact that it was a TV show that aired many years ago. I'm talking with Captain Kirk and Spock back in those days. I can't remember what that one's called, but my dad used to love that Star Trek. And so taking that one into consideration, I believe set the trend for how space really works when considering media. And I believe they did a very, very good job. And this game, Mass Effect, reminds me of Star Trek, which is why I love it so much as well, because their approach to the matter is a bit it's a bit assertive, and obviously if you follow the law of Mass Effect, at least in Mass Effect 1, so you go through the journal and stuff, the way they relay the information is just perfect. I remember I fell in love with it when I first got my hands onto this. Anywho, taking that into consideration, space is something that can either make or break a situation. It's hard to break a situation when space is so vast. You can't necessarily kind of cripple yourself to one flight plan when there's so many flight plans. You have gravity, you have outside of gravity, and then you have intergalactic, and you have outer galactic. So there's 4 flight models there alone. Taking that into consideration, you can't really go wrong, guys. So once we focus on like some of those kind of aspects, and we focus on how important sci-fi is, gaming is, then I believe there's no way that a title like Star Citizen can fail. But this game obviously has story, and unfortunately they didn't escalate it from the past. You can't fly a spaceship, you can't what else can't you do? They didn't make it more open world. But anyway, guys, I'm your boy Patience. Leave your thumbs and likes and your comments down below, and if you have any queries, guys.